Hey guys, Jay from strictlybrokentcg here. I decided to do a deck list video today. We don't really do these very often. The last one I did was AOT. But going through the tier list and stuff, I felt like I really wanted to talk about this deck. It's probably my favorite deck that I've played in Weiss in probably a good while, honestly. And I felt like it's pretty well positioned going into the current BCS format, even with the Ozkigura, Hololive, and Alice, and currently Overlord coming out at the beginning of September. So I wanted to talk about it. The plan is we're going to go over a quick deck profile. I'm going to tell you about all the cool cards I like in this deck, and, why the deck is good. And then I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent ramble about the deck and why I think it's going to perform, what I think does well. And if you want to stick around for that, that's fine. That's cool. I appreciate it. Otherwise, we're going to leave a timestamp so you'll know when it ends, and you could just kind of start, go through the deck profile, listen to me, talk about the part that most people really care about. All right, so starting off with our first card, we're going to look at Relaxing by the Pool, Okami Mio. This card is an on play and on death drop search. Nothing really too crazy there. I think it's a good effect, and it's actually the on death drop search comes up a lot in the deck. But the main part of this that matters is that it is on play. You get to look at the top two cards of your deck, rearrange them, or mill them. This is the card that enables Hololive to be a deck that can trigger standbys. Basically, like almost on command. It's pretty insane. The on play look at top two means that you can go play it, drop search for a card that you might need. There's a lot of really good like cards, like one of text, everything. And you don't have that much selection towards your like non-level zeros outside of specifically the level 0 combo that I'll get to, and your and this card actually. So does that for you, and then it just says on play look at top two. You can rearrange them so you always trigger standbys on two. If you see two clean cards, you can mill them. If you see standby targets, you can mill them. This card is like very similar to the Nino Rico from Quint's movie, or Quint's 2 on the movie. You just play it down. It, instead of being like a, ditch, reveal top, ditch, draw, it's literally just look at the two cards, dunk them, keep them, whatever you want to do. You can set up soul trigger attacks with it. If you need to push extra damage, it just does so much. Definitely the all-star of the deck. This is probably the deck that makes this card feel like a double R, where I think this card is good in most situations, but it doesn't have that real like double R stick, especially when I talk to a lot of people about it. They all seem to pretty much agree. The next card we're going to talk about is Enthusiastic Summer, Natsuhiro Matsuri. This is just your generic Stock Bomb with an optional Mill 3 effect. Stock Bombs are really strong. I think Stock Bombs will be very well positioned going into the current format. A lot of decks are playing Chiaris. You're going to see the decks playing like the Aqua Rickies, and in general, anything that's on death, very good against. Mill 3, also very good in standby. Lets you, mill through your deck really fast. It's really easy to grab this card, which is really core, I think. And just being a good turn 1 play that you can just mill through your deck, see some standby targets. Good card. Yellow matters. Then we have Professor of Manners, Tokoyami Toa. This card is actually a card that was it was seen in other things first. My first experience with this was in Overlord 2, which is going to be coming out in JP in English soon, but it's been in JP for a while. This is a Cocutus. Exact same effect. It is just on attack, you give one of your characters 1500 power and hand encore until the end of your opponent's turn. This card is also one of the core cards I think that makes this deck as good as it is. I was on 4. I recently cut it down to 3 for a card that we'll get to. Just to have a bit more utility. I find you only really need to have 2 of this in circulation ever, but the third is good to see. You can do a lot of really cool plays with this that I'll talk about more in like the rambling section. But just know this card makes it so you can defend your 1/1s really well. You can defend your 3/2s really well. Give the cards, all the silly cards in your deck that don't have hand encore can get hand encore off of this card. Makes it so you can do things like give your Stock Bomb hand encore, give your Mio hand encore. You can do a lot of really cool things with this card, and it also gives them 1500 power, so it can make them into like really sizable bodies, and you have a lot of cards that you don't want to attack with, but you're willing to convert a card in your hand to keep that card on board and let it still be an attacker at 0. Next, we have A Step Towards the Future Ozki. This is your first combo in the deck. This is your standby. This card, probably one of the most innocuously strong combos I've seen in a while. It's just when you play the standby, sack the standby, bounce her to hand, search one, and she has on play, give one of your characters 1000 power. This just kind of ended up being the best, like, generic standby card I think you can ask for that doesn't ask you to warp your deck in any way to play specific combos. You can play this in just about anything that you want standby in Hololive, and it will feel good. Just being a search one is just good enough. It's just playable almost all the time. It's, your bouncer of choice. Just honestly fantastic card. This is one of your main ways to search all the cards in your deck. And it's just like a consistently always playable standby thing. You'll always want to be grabbing this, making sure you have it in your hand. And just being a recurable power pump really does come up quite a lot. Very cool card. Then we have Encore just for 2 Polka. This card has a lot of text on it. It is on play of a climax. You can pay 1, look at the top 4, add a Hololive character, also known as a Magi. Very strong, very nice to have in standby decks that give you like a pay 1 plus and deck speed. The other effect on this card is this is also a bouncer. Whenever you play a climax, you can put this to your hand. If you do, you get to give one of your characters 1500 power, and then you scry the top card of your deck, or surveil, the proper term. Mill it. This card is just another way to help you find standbys. It gives power. This deck has so much power to throw around between the Toa, the Ozki, this, and a few other cards that are just like the board-based cards. Feels really good. You can make a lot of your things be able to scale things like Alice on offense fairly reasonably. Very cool card. Next, the card that I cut the Toa for, Valentine for You, Yuzuki Choko. We play an event in this deck that is pretty core to the whole defensive game plan of this. So this is a console. Look at top, add if Hololive character or event. Means you have a little bit of extra ways to get it, and with the Mio, you can actually like set the event to be on top and then let this grab it for you. Really neat little interaction. And this is just pay 1, sack, look at top 4, add 1. So because you can grab 0 so well, you can just grab this, use it to move through your deck. It gives you an extra stock out that this deck kind of lacks sometimes during the main phase. Next, already so soon, our other standby combo. We do not play a top end combo in this deck. We just play towards the good level 3s, and because of that, we're playing 2 advantage combos. This is a step towards the future Omaru Polka. He is a 7/5 if 2 or more dudes on the board. And climax combo on attack. Salvage a level X or lower character. X is the number of characters in your memory. We don't play any memory in this deck, so it will always be 0. But that's perfectly fine because our best cards are 0s. And our 0s find us all the other cards we care about. And then she also gets 1k power, so she gets to be an 8/5 attacker, which is really good. You can actually make this card be able to contest Alice and force them to counter, which is good. You can give it hand encore. Very nice, where it doesn't immediately have it because of the Toa. And so we're just using this to grab our 0s. We can grab this, we can grab this if we don't have it, we can grab our Ozki if we don't have it. A lot of the time, you're just going to be using it to grab these 3 cards because they are just all so strong, and we want them in at different times, and Polka just lets us keep putting them in our hands and just looping them. Really good, strong 1/1 combo. And the deck, because you're playing Ozki, doesn't feel like it also relies on this card to survive either, which is super sick. 2 generic 1175s. This is hashtag Nikiri Art Scrolls, Nikiri IMA, just a 1175. I've seen people play the Polka that's in this set. It's a 1/0 offensive 55, and then it has pay 1, send it to memory to be a field counter for, I believe, 2500 power. That card's also really good. I just like this card as hand encore. I think in a format where a lot of things have offensive power, I don't think the 25 counter will really matter too much at level 1. Even throughout the game, I didn't really want to give that card board slots. I just wanted an extra hand encore 1/1. Worth testing, though. I will probably end up testing it sooner than later because BCS is around the corner. We'll see, though. Our last level 1 is hashtag Hato Art Akai Hato. This is a 1500 counter, and it is a pay 1 tap brainstorm. This is one of 3 total brainstorms we play in the deck. Notice we have no level 0 brainstorms. We have a level 3 brainstorm and a level 1 brainstorm. This card is really cool. You can search this out with Ozki. If you need it to brainstorm, you can use it to brainstorm. Otherwise, you have it as a 1500 counter. Polka's already going to be a pretty decently high power. So sometimes the 1500 is all you really need because she's already going to be normally like 15 higher than the average 1/1 if the deck's going well. So going into that, we can now talk about the level 2s. So, taking a cue from Overlord 2's standby deck. Their whole gimmick was to do something similar with an Ainz level 1 combo, put up a 7/5, support it with a 1500 assist that then converted into your level 3 stuff. We're just going to steal the 75 and make it a 9k part because I think that was the strongest part of Ainz regardless, in my opinion. So we have our Polka. She's going to be 75. You stand by this Pekko out. This is just an assist 1500 power. The rest of the text doesn't matter. You will almost never play this from your hand. To get the marker, nor will you have the ability to sack it to bring it back. We just want 1500 assists, so our Polkas and our IMAs are set our 9Ks through the turns. So that means Polka can attack at 10k. And this is just a card that will stay on your board until you eventually convert it off for better cards. But nonetheless, it's part of what makes this level 1 feel so good, because 9k 1/1s are really strong, and it's a really hard number to beat over, especially when you have a card like this to support them. The name of this card is Things in This World Are Too Fragile, Amane Kanata. He is a 2/1. When this card attacks, it gets 1k times the number of your other characters, and she is pay 1 at the beginning of your opponent's attack phase to swap her and another card on your board. This is a card that we have seen in Dal be abused to no end with the 1/1 Yoshino Adachi. Guild swapping in standby decks is very strong. Instead of being an Adachi that you can put down at level 0, you can put this down at level 1, but the trade-off is this card attacks really big. Being an 11k by itself, if you have a full board, is super duper relevant. Alongside the power pumps like the Ozki, like the Pekko, like the Polka Amagi, this card can start hitting things like 11, 13, 15k, which means that you can realistically beat over Alice's with just this card alone, and then you can kind of swap this around, protect it, so you can keep having a card that can win lanes for you if you need to. Has really cool applications with, like, put this card to the front, attack with it, standby card to the back row, swap the card, so it's always on the field. Just, the Dal stuff. We do it too, but we have, I think in my opinion, a lot cooler standby targets. So it makes it feel really strong. The event we were playing is the hashtag Hololive 0th Gen event. This card is a super strong defensive counter. It just choose one of your characters. It gains the following 2 abilities. Cannot be reversed, and during this card's battle, your opponent cannot burn you with auto effects. So it turns off things like Guras in lanes, and you don't have to target the battling character. You can target your other characters. So normally what you'll do is you'll go play it. If it's a defensive burn, you can go like Nino, like a end of attack burn. You can go give it here to the relevant lane. Otherwise, you can give it to another lane so that the Gura can't burn or whatever it is on attack burns. Synergizes with another really cool card we'll get to. Just a good defensive counter to give them more. Obviously, we have tap counter. I don't think much need to be said about this card. This deck is really good at using tap counter. So we are going to play it, and because we want a pillow fort. I've got access to a memory kit counter, so we will play this card. This card is definitely techable based on the meta you're feeling. If you don't feel like memory kit counter is relevant, maybe you don't respect SDS, maybe you don't respect Tokyo Revengers, whatever. There's the Matsuri, that is a 2500 with a counter with pay 1, put it back in your hand. You can be playing Suisei Anti-Change, you could be playing a second tap counter. I think this card is like a very decently flexible counter. Then we have the level 3s. So we have just Ime Mori Luna. This is the card from set 1 that if anybody asked you about 8 Standby Hololive, this would probably be the card they talked about. This is one of the most broken level 3 standby targets I think I've ever seen in Weiss Schwarz in the years I've been playing. It just has so much text on it. So we'll go through it real quick. Card is level 0. You have to front attack it, because that's her flavor, because she's a 0-year-old. Having to front attack this card feels really oppressive because it has 2 relevant effects when it gets attacked. It has, when there's a front attack, look at the top card of your deck, keep it or mill it. So, defensive scry. And it also has, when this character's battle opponent is reversed during either player's turn, ditch a Hololive character, burn 1. So it has a burn, it has defensive power, it is 11/5 base, and your opponent has to front it, so they can't get around this card being a level 0. The only part you have to be obviously aware of is that because it's level 0, they can bomb it with level 2 and lower bombs, 3 and lower bombs, whatever, they can bomb it. But because we have Kanata Field Swapper, that becomes a lot of a non-issue. So we're gonna just roll with that. and it's basically the card that wins you the game. I want to say like 75% of the time. We have this Miko, which is a really strong 2k assist. We see most standby decks playing some sort of 2k assist. It's just on play heal one. This deck does not play a lot of healers, so having this access to a healer is very good. And it is a pay 2 rest, pay 1 rest 2 brainstorm. So this is your other 2 brainstorm in the deck. So technically come online at 2. You technically have a level 0 brainstorm if you stand by Hotto at 0. It's come up, but card is just really good. It lets you use your back row slots all you want, be able to keep brainstorming. Hotto is a salvage. This is a search, so it's nice having both access to both kinds as well. Then we have a bunch of flex level 3s to round out the rest of the deck. The first card is Embarrassed Princess, Himemori Luna. This is our EP. We only play 1. I was considering 2. I haven't fully decided on it yet. There's a card in here I'll mention that I'm going to probably cut for something, and it will very likely be one of these. This card, just like the other Luna, is a level 0 that you have to front attack. Its early play condition is 6 or more climaxes in waiting room. Not a good condition, but the card is pretty strong, and this deck has a good amount of deck speed to make it okay. Notice it has 3 souls, for whatever reason. Makes it feel really good to catch up at level 2 and some damage. You can swing with this card into a lane and still be able to push a lot of damage. And it has ditch a card from your hand, heal a Hololive character from your clock to your hand. Means you can clock really aggressively with certain cards and be able to pick them back up. Things like your stock swap don't get stuck in clock, etc. Very nice, very good EP. We have the stock swap, #festival drawings, Natsuro Matsuri. This is the stock swap you'll see in every Hololive deck. If they're playing any amount of yellow, card is just really good. We like stock swap. Alice is a menace. We play towards it. We have Ozki. Ozki is just a 1500 global, and she is an alternative, like helps you finish the game. If she's in the center stage, if your opponent's characters are all reversed and or the lanes are empty, so Joker condition, ditch 2, burn 1, and then this card gets 1000 power until the end of your opponent's turn. Also very cool card. You can replace this with Pekko, and then you can kind of push this up with the field swapper. Does not give power to itself, but it gives power while it's in the back row, like the Benimaru from Slime. Very nice card. Good one of. Debatably can play 2. I think it's strong enough to warrant 2, because it feels really good to have it, and when you lose it, it does feel really bad. Then we have our Fubuki. What is it? Foxy Day to You Shirakami Fubuki. This card is on attack, pay 1, drop 1, gains when this gains power, and when this versus your opponent's character, burn 1. The main reason using this card is for the beginning of your opponent's draw phase. You give one of your characters 4000 power, makes it so your cards like your Luna are really hard to kill. I never use this card. I don't think I've ever actually fielded this card a single time. This is the card that I'm probably going to be cutting. There's a lot of merit for this card. Japan has played this card still. I've seen them cut it. I've seen them keep it. It really depends on the person, I think, and whether they can think to use this card. I just never really care to. It will likely become another of the EP Luna, or there is the Miko, who is a reprint of the Bomb from Prisma Ilya, which I think is a really insanely strong card. It is a 3/2 Miko that says it's a bomb, a level 3 bomb, and it says when this gets reversed, bounce to hand, and it's an on-play heal. So you can stand by it out, let them crash into it, pick it up, and then you get to have a healer. It just gives you an extra like loopable healer over turns, which kind of adds up. Or it'll just be another Luna, more than likely. And then finally, the card to round it out that most people don't play, but I think this card is an absolute house for the current format. Aki Rosenthal. She is a bodyguard while she's in the center, which is a normal bodyguard condition. 8k base, so she's pretty small, but she has 2 really cool effects. The first one is if your hand is 1 or less, she gets 10,000 power, so she'll be 18k. Not that it really matters. You have a lot of power in this deck between the Toa, between the back rows. You can reasonably make her like defensively 13k, 14k before you even counter. Pretty good, even without the condition. And then if you tap counter, like God forbid you hold tap counter, you use tap counter, all of a sudden your hand goes to 0 or 1, and she gets plus 10,000 power, and your opponent has to play around that. Her other cool effect that synergizes with her own effect is on attack. Ditch 3 cards from your hand, choose any character in your opponent's field, send it to waiting room. So things like Agura, if they play the Gura, you can just shoot the Gura. You can shoot their standbys, their brainstorms, whatever you want to shoot. Any card that's obstructing this card, Just get rid of it. Doesn't matter. 3-hand expensive though, obviously, but you get to use this card with the anti-burn event, and this is the main combo that you want to use it for. You make this a big bodyguard. You give this can't be reversed. You give it the anti-burn text. Now, it doesn't matter if it's small, because that means your Lunas can burn on the side lanes on your turn. And then you just turn off 2 lanes of burns. Maybe even 3 if you're playing against like Nino. They triple Nino, they just don't get any. Super duper sick. And obviously they have to front it because it's a bodyguard. And that is the whole deck. So thank you for watching this far. If you were just interested in the deck profile, I think the deck is really cool. Definitely give it a try. It's super duper cheap. Definitely worth trying, especially if you like standby decks. I personally don't like standby decks, but I really just kind of vibed with this deck because it's very Mushoku-esque in how it feels to play. Very defensive, board-based, feels really good. I really did like 8 Standby Mushoku a lot. Thank you guys for watching, if this is all you're going to watch. Now I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent. So for those of you that want to stay around and keep listening to me, I think 8 Standby Hololive is a deck that is super duper looked down on in English because everybody, I think, is just kind of blinded by Asakura. I think Asakura is a very good deck, no doubt. But I think it's very volatile. It's very unfun to play. I don't like that it doesn't play Weiss Schwarz. I want to play Weiss Schwarz. This deck plays Weiss Schwarz. You have to think. You have to play. You get to play. You get to interact with your opponent. You don't feel like you have to just kind of sit there and drool until the game is eventually allowed to, the game lets you win. Try to win. Because you're grinding. You don't have this potent finisher. You have burn ones as your finishers. So because of that, we're gonna really be thinking and like really playing, and it's really cool. It's really engaging. Board-based decks, I think, are just really fun in general too. Nothing feels better than winning and then watching your opponent get really sad when they just can't clear your board. Slamming Lunas down is euphoric. They have to front it. It keeps you safe. It burns. It does literally everything. Go over some quick matchups real quick. So the reason I'm going to probably be playing this deck for at least one event during the BCS season, maybe even 2, is because I think the matchup into Asakura is pretty solid. Not the greatest. It's still scary because Gura can just blow you out, and you really don't want to hit 3 versus that deck. Fortunately, I think Asakura is a deck that drools. It is very poorly positioned into board-based decks. Ame does not get super duper big, which is their card that makes them a lot of stock. It did not get big enough that you can't play around it to some capacity. Potentially, if you have extra 2-1 events in your hand, you can deny them the ability to reverse, which is pretty funny. Just kind of keep them off. Early standbying Aki is super duper strong because you can start paying up a hand to just shoot their Gura if they stand by and just keep them off that extra Gura, which means they have to play for 10 stock to triple you. Because if the deck double versus triple Gura is like a very different ball game. Triple Gura is terrifying. Double Gura is just a good finisher. So we want to play around that. They cannot dodge tap counter in this deck, which is really strong because Luna can't be has to be fronted. Luna can't be leveled down. Luna can't be anti-changed. They can't do anything about Luna. She is just going to be there unless they play with Tames, but that's why we're also trying to play the Aki. They give them too many threats to deal with that they just can't reasonably deal with them all. If they play the IMA level down, you can stand by. You can swap the Aki to a constant field swap, or even potentially just try to refresh on that turn right beforehand, so that if you read the level down is going to come, they can't do it. Very sick. Very versatile in that regard. And they're just going to let you do whatever you want through the whole rest of the game because they're not going to have the power to kill your cards. You're just going to play the game. You're going to set up your board, and they're going to be very sad. Versus Alice, who is probably the other big boogeyman of the format, you have definitely a hard time in the beginning versus Alice. You will basically be doing your best to hit level 1 first, field as many of your level 1 combo Polka as you can, get your cards to hand, try to find ideally you get to play this card alongside a Toa, take your turn. You just go swing, 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 give one of these hand encore, may hopefully pick up 2 cards. Save your cards on the, save your card on defense, and maybe you have a card. Because if you can potentially keep a polka, play a polka, and then have combo again, that's really strong, because then now you can force the Alices to counter over you, which is really good because you didn't really spend that much for these polkas, and they're giving you a bunch of hand back. So you're going to go force them to counter over, keep them off their stock, and then you can go into the Kanata Field Swapper that I mentioned. Because this deck has so much power, your game plan is going to be hit level 2, then you're going to go summon the Kanata. Either you standby it or you hard play it at level 2, doesn't really matter. Then our goal is going to be to either, if we think that Aki can hose the game out for us, play towards the Aki. That really depends on your hand. If you have counters, and if you have access to counters, maybe Oski. If you have the Peko on the board already, sick. Otherwise, we're going to be looking to just try to double field Lunas. We're going to try to go have standby in hand, ideally, obviously, for this to work. Or if you're just a really strong player and you hit 2 standbys with Mio and stuff, that's good too. All of that works. But the main line of play we're going to just do is play the Mios, find standby, play standby, buff Kanata. Kanata swings over an Alice guaranteed. Luna in the back row, so you can field swap a Luna. And then ideally we go, crash our stupid Mio lane, doesn't matter. Standby over the Mio. This searches us a counter, just in case. And then we have a double Luna with ideally some sort of power support, either maybe a Miko, or usually going to be the Peko. And then we have this in the back row again to be another attacker on the next turn. And we have double 13k Lunas backed by some sort of counter, ideally. Either, Hato, Memory Kick, whatever. And then Alice's now have to start crashing into these cards. And that's really unfavorable for them. Ideally, we want Memory Kick, because if they play something like the Lifa EP that I know some people are playing because that card's pretty sick, the counter helps you keep over them and then drop them an extra 1k power even if they get the power pump. So it's still hard for Alice's to clear your cards. Very strong. I think that's pretty sick that you even have that ability to just play this deck out if you hit standbys. Same thing kind of goes for Nino. That deck's a little obnoxious because it has so much power. But if you can deny them their level 1 combo early enough and force them to have to hit standbys to get over you, it is what it is if they hit the standbys, right? You can't do anything about that. But you can play your best to avoid it because of cards like the Toa, and you still have the same level of recursion because Toa lets you cheat and, give this card that shouldn't really have the hand encore. It makes it 10-5. If you go, this card plus Peko, Toa, give it power, it's a 9k, 10-5 before you do anything else, and it's 11-5 if you combo. Really big. Really, really obnoxious to deal with, actually. Overlord is going to be a bad deck, regardless, to deal with. Not that the deck is bad, but it's a bad matchup. Shooting your card is really obnoxious. Our goal is going to basically be to play for board at level 1 without overcommitting back row, which should be reasonable. Daltier, if they play the combo, is not very big. Otherwise, if they're playing the event stuff, they're not really doing a lot. You're going to just kind of snooze for a bit until they hit 2. Play your best out. Play your board. Play your best. Try to keep your good cards in hand. Our goal, ideally, in a perfect situation, is to hit level 2 first. Summon Aki to the field. This is where you'd probably want anti-change counter. That would be the ideal. Maybe come, Overlord release season, when I'll be in Jersey, I might try to fit an anti-change counter because of Ainz. But if you can go, I just pull up the Aki. If you can go summon Aki to the board, right? Get Aki big enough, play your best that you can, or even if you don't even need to have Aki be big, realistically, you just need her on the board in the center slot. Then they go Ainz. First set of Ainz combo, they have a bodyguard. So they either Ainz and pass, which is a super big tempo swing for you regardless. Even if they're going to shoot your board on the next turn, who cares, right? If they don't, you anti-chains their Ainz, which is what you ideally want to be doing, and that's the big issue with Ainz, is that if it wants to normally side its opponent the first turn, and then blow up the board, and then it can swing for free. But until then, you're telling it it can't side. This could also just be Lunas. If you could somehow hit multiple Lunas and a field swapper to the front row, and just make sure Luna's in front of the Ainz, that's just as good, realistically. Even if it's not in front of the Ainz, just having their cards like 2 of their cards not be able to front or have to front you, which means that they can't attack, is probably just good enough too. Because again, you're double anti-damaging them in that situation. So just things to really think about when it comes to that matchup. I think it's still pretty okay. It's still doable because, again, this is a broken card in standby. It means that you can just hit standbys. There's a lot of turns where I've hit 2 standbys, played a standby, triggered 2 standbys because this card just ripped. I played like 2 of these because I knew I was going to get back like 3 hand, 4 hand because I had Ozki combo, I had the Polka Amagi. I was going to, add one to hand, bounce back to hand, Ozki bounce to hand, search a card. That's 4 cards right there. So I just overplayed a Mio willy-nilly, didn't really think too much about it. Looked at 2, saw nothing, ditched them, and then just proceeded on. And then this card also just always feels like a good attacker because you get to go attack with it. If you see standby on 2, this becomes the card you standby over because you get to pay out that standby and then search a card out of your deck, which could also potentially make you hit another standby if it's something you're looking for. Usually are. Other than that, I don't think the rest of this deck is too super crazy. Field Swapper is good. Card has a lot of text. I think most other matchups are pretty easy. I think the Kanata matchups are super duper free. Your goal is usually just going to be to summon the Aki out and vibe on Aki. You get to, if you make it big enough, you can just memory kick the Kanatas outright. Even just sitting on Lunas is really hard for them to deal with. But Aki is really funny if you manage to go to 2 first because they double trigger or whatever. Summon Aki with a support. She's 9-5. Memory kick counter. She's 12-5. Kanatas can't beat 12-5 on offense. In the center, I guess they technically could. So you might want to have something like a Toa. Toa also really funny interactions with Aki because you can summon Aki to the back row with the Field Swapper here. And then just go, hypothetically Field Swapper, go attack with Toa, give this 1500 hand encore. Then you swap them. And now this card is 9-5 hand encore before anything else. So even if they kill it, you can have it back for the next turn, shoot the card in the lane, and then it will win the lane. It obviously gets to win its lane because the card is not there anymore, even if they have a Kanata or something. But ideally, you sit on this card, make it 11k, let's say, because I think Kanata caps realistically around 14, right? 15 from the Iroha Brainstorm, 2k from the, let's say they have one Iroha Brainstorm, like double Coco, right? That's 2k, 12k, 13.5 is like their cap if they're gonna throw their board away to do that kind of stuff. And then you just go, okay, cool, memory kick counter, goodbye Kanata, triple Kanata, goodbye. It doesn't really matter. Then they don't get to play the game anymore, whether they're playing Gura or they're playing Marine. Bodyguard is just a house for so many decks right now. I can understand Japan just doesn't play this card right now. The Initialist I saw played it, and that's where I got the inspiration for it. But I really think it's really good in the current English format. So we're gonna rock it until it's bad. So that is the deck though. Again, I really like It's Done by Hololive a lot. I encourage people to give it a try in the English format. I know it's not a deck that Japan picked up really until Ozkigura was gone, but I think upon retrospect and like really playing with it, I think the matchup is more than good into the format, all things considered. Maybe it's not the best deck to be playing. Probably, I would probably rate this to be like a top 5 deck in the current format. Maybe a little bit worse with Overlord, depending how comfortable you feel in the matchup. Similar to Slime, I think both of those decks are in a very similar position meta-wise, where they're both good, maybe like slightly up under other things you could be playing. Doesn't make them bad. I think they're still very good competitors. I think there's a gotcha factor to these decks that you can just kind of knowledge check people for not knowing how the deck works or what the tools the deck has. My locals unfortunately experienced that firsthand the first couple times I played it. Done really well with this at locals recently. Played against a lot of good decks, a lot of good players. I definitely just encourage giving it a try. Decks cheap, like I said in the deck profile. Really, really fun. Probably the most fun standby deck I've ever played. As you can see, it's also on the way to being maxed, so that's pretty cool. But yeah. Thank you all for watching my, deck profile, my little rant about afterwards. Feel free to hit me up on socials, at Prins_WS on Twitter. Hit me up on Discord. I don't know what my Discord is. Prins. I'm in the I'm in comp. I'm in the official, like, the Weiss Schwarz, like, community Discord. I'm in the Hard Games Discord. Feel free to DM me about this deck. Ask me any questions. I'll gladly answer. You can put it in the comments. I'll try to look and answer. Thank you guys for watching, and you all have a good day.